How are you?
Good.
It's a pleasure to be here today. It's my first time here, and I have to say it almost feels a bit surreal to be in this room, and you feel very connected to everyone, and there's a lot of energy, and you feel very connected to the source, if you will, to your own divinity.
Yes.
But I'm a bit of a pragmatist, and so I say to myself, well, when I leave this room, reality sets in. And my reality, I guess, to my question is, it's about unemployment. It's about how do you, for those of us who are unemployed and seeking employment, stay connected to the source and to your own sense of divinity and still deal with the reality and the drama and the pain of trying to find a job.
Thank you. Thank you. It's challenging. Challenges are good, potentially. They can either wake you up, awaken you, or they can pull you into more reactivity, unconsciousness, and suffering. Every challenge that comes into your life, there's always, suddenly you can go either this way, or you can go that way. Potentially the challenge is very helpful. Challenge means, again, a word I sometimes use, limitation in one form or another comes into your life. I'm certainly grateful for the challenges that came into my life. I wouldn't be sitting here, and many of you probably realize that without the challenges that you encountered in your life, you wouldn't be sitting here. You'd be watching television. This is something I have a little bit of personal experience with also. Well, maybe even quite a lot of personal experience. Because for a large part of my adult life, I was actually not employed as such, large part. And for a large part, lived on relatively little, for a few years, on quite a few years, even in my 30s. Below the poverty line, I read that in the paper once, when it mentioned, at that time, I read the paper, it mentioned the income, a single person, below that is below the poverty line. I realized, oh, I'm much below that, but I didn't realize I was poor. I realized that there were things I couldn't afford to buy. I could buy tomato sauce, but I couldn't buy spaghetti sauce. Tomato sauce is cheaper, much cheaper, and that stayed with me even for many years. Even as recently as 4 years ago, I sometimes still found myself getting tomato sauce instead of spaghetti sauce. It's much cheaper. So here's one piece of advice for jobless. There are practical things that then you need to readjust and deal with. There's some action you may need to take in order to adjust to the new situation. All that is in the practical realm. Then there is the mental realm. And in the mental realm is where the suffering could arise, not in the practical realm. There's no suffering in eating spaghetti with this thin tomato sauce. Just one little example, this stands for many things, rather than a nice, specially prepared sauce for pasta. But if you think, suddenly thought arises, and I'm just using this example to could apply to many things, the thought arises, this is what it has come to. Here I sit, have to eat this watery sauce with eating the cheapest food there is. What have I've lost all that I thought I had achieved, I have failed. Probably won't find another job because millions of people are now looking for jobs. It's pointless. I'll probably have to have the same again tomorrow. Many other kinds of thoughts arise. That's where the suffering comes from. The suffering also comes from a diminished sense of self-worth in your... Now where is that? Of course it's in your head. The diminished sense of self-worth is because I'm now useless, and so on. Maybe I'm too old nobody will employ me anymore, or whatever. I should have had a better education. I'm no good for anything anymore. Nobody will want. Whatever the thoughts are, a diminished sense of self-worth, and that is because your self-worth before was derived from your function in this world, which is a very normal thing. But it wasn't really derived from your function in this world. It was derived from what your mind told you about your function in this world. And so you derived your sense of self-worth from certain thoughts in your head, and you got perhaps some feedback from others who also told you that you are useful. You were part of all that interaction that people have when they have a job. You have a boss. The boss might tell you, you're doing well, you're getting a promotion. Okay, and the clients love you, whatever. And then you lose it all that, and you had built up your sense of self-worth from the thoughts and the thoughts of others. And so the opportunity now is, when there is a diminished sense of self-worth, to go to a deeper place where a sense of self-worth comes from that has nothing to do with what you are doing in this world, or with nothing to do with what anybody tells you about yourself. A sense of self-worth, of value, that in other words has nothing to do with the structure of thinking. So you can use the challenge to see that if you can find something in a deeper place in you where there's something of far greater value than anything that could be derived from thinking about yourself. So when you lose your job, very often your self-image can become damaged. And that's where the suffering comes from, because the self-image is made up out of thinking. And a damaged self-image can either lead you into more suffering, and it will just go on and to pull you deeper, and you talk to others about how dreadful it is, and perhaps they'll even say, yes, you're right, and pulls you deeper and deeper. Or you step out of deriving your sense of who you are ultimately from thinking, and go into the aliveness of being, of presence. And you realize that who you actually are is much more vitally there than in anything that you can think about. So potentially then you can transcend, when your self-image gets damaged, you can transcend self-image. Of course you can try to repair also, but that just prolongs the unawakened state. But that's fine too, if that's what you repair your self-image. Maybe you find a good job tomorrow, and then you can, very quickly your self-image will be repaired, but you will have missed the opportunity of stepping beyond self-image altogether. So the idea in your head that thoughts that tell you something about who you are or what your worth is, that's ultimately illusory. It is illusory both when the thoughts are good and when the thoughts are negative. But the illusory nature can perhaps be more easily recognized when the thoughts become negative and cause suffering. Suffering can be an awakener. So use that opportunity of a diminished sense of self-worth, self-image, and step beyond. And then perhaps you'll find a job, but your sense of worth no longer depends on what you do there or what you don't do or achieve or you don't achieve. You will have found some transcendence, and you can bring that transcendence into your next job, where the clinging to images is not there anymore, mental images. And you'll be surprised how well you do in your next job when the clinging to images isn't there anymore. But then the success that you are more likely actually to encounter in that state of consciousness will not be the cause of your feeling of, well, I don't want to call it happiness because it's deeper than happiness, your sense of fulfillment. It will no longer be the cause of your fulfillment, because your fulfillment has already been found directly in the present moment, in the depths of who you are. So you no longer look to external situations to fulfill you. When you no longer look to external situations to fulfill you, the miracle is external situations become quite fulfilling. And so that is where you can use this challenge as part of your awakening. And that's the practice. Then the practical things are not, there's no suffering in that. For a while I didn't even have a home and I would just drift around. Fortunately, I had already stepped out of identification with mind. If I had still been stuck in the mental box, it would have been a time of great suffering, because my mind would have told me certain things about myself, which I would have completely believed. I have failed. I've thrown away all these opportunities that life has given me. I was a graduate student at a great university. I could have done great things. I've thrown it all away. Why did this happen to me? I'm useless. Nobody's going to employ me. That's suffering. But fortunately, I had already stepped out of that. So all that was, there was the situation of sitting on a bench and looking around. People, seeing how much money I had in my pocket. Oh, enough for a meal at the cafeteria there. Could go self-service, shepherd's pie. No suffering, just the situation of this moment. There was actually beauty and aliveness in it. Self-worth was no longer dependent on what I was doing in this world. So there's always any challenge, whether it's that kind of challenge or physical challenge, the body, whatever it may be, it can be used as the fire that burns up unconsciousness.
Thank you.